Hey, good afternoon. I'm Robin Da Vinci, and I've been a small business owner for 36 years. I have been a W-2 employee, a contractor, and I'm a citizen of this crazy country. So I am here to help, help. I'm one of those boomers who wants to give back. I'm anxious to get going on this. So on my last video, I talked about being an employee. That means you get a W-2, and at the end of the year, the government knows all the money you made and how much you gave them and blah, 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 right? And you've been a W-2 employee most of your life, and you never had to worry about paying taxes. You never had to worry about that. You just got your paycheck and paid your bills and did all the right things, right? Oh, of course. And now you're out of a job, or you're tired of being an employee and you want to work on your own. I hear it more than anything else. I want to work for myself. And so that changes your life completely. So remember, when you're an employee, you have a paycheck that you get. Out of that comes all your taxes. At the end of the year, someone gives you a piece of paper called a W-2. You take it to your tax guy, or you go online and do your own taxes. You fill it all out. You answer all the questions, and boom, you either get money back, you owe a little, there you go. You do that every year and you have never thought about it. Well, let's get into a different mindset, because if you are out there looking to work for yourself and possibly hire other contractors, be a contractor, open a small business, be what's called an independent contractor, here are the facts and the BS. Number one, BS. You're working for yourself. Isn't that grand? Let me just bust that one out there. When you are an independent contractor or have a small business, you literally are working for everybody else. Every single customer, every single client, everybody is your boss. So please bust that crap right out of your head. When you're an independent contractor, even though, yes, you can say, I'm not working that, or I'm not taking that job. When you're there, the person that's paying you is your boss. And let me tell you, they are a lot more critical out there when you are a contractor than when you're an employee. There's a little bit of cushion, a little bit of protection when you're an employee. But when you are the employer or you are the contractor, you are out there sort of buck naked to the world. So you have to have a thick skin and understand how competitive it is. So first myth about it is that I work for myself, I call my own shots, and no one tells me what to do. Well, you may work for yourself and you may call your own shots, but everybody's going to tell you what to do. Now, I'm here to tell you, after 36 years, that's just the truth. So we busted that one. And I'll tell you why. Because they are hiring you to get something from you in a specific amount of time for a specific amount of money. So if you don't learn how to bid, or you don't know how to decide what your job is worth, you could be underwater with each job. You have to factor in so many things. So we're going to start to go through that. All right. Okay. Second problem with being an independent contractor, and I am one, is you're not paying into unemployment or disability if you work for yourself. And so when you work for yourself, you've got to factor in that you've got no safety net if something goes wrong. And that's what happened in this last crisis, cash crisis, and the downturn in the economic times right now. What happened is there were a lot of people working for as contractors that paid into unemployment, and then went to go get unemployment. They said, hey, wait a minute, you don't get unemployment. You haven't paid into it for yourself, and no one's paid into it for you. Now, let me explain what that means. When you're an employee, your employer pays unemployment insurance every month on your paychecks. So for me, I'm at a certain level of percent paying for against my employees' paychecks, right? And so then if I had to lay someone off, or they got fired, but they were allowed to claim an insurance, unemployment insurance, they would go to the state that they live in and apply. They would look up my account number and say, oh yes, Robin Da Vinci's paid into unemployment, so therefore you can pull unemployment. I'm an active employer. They're an inactive employee. They've just gotten laid off. I've been paying in all this time, so they can collect a weekly sum. Therein lies the problem. If you're a contractor, independent completely, and getting just, you bid out a job for 5,000 and you get the 5,000 in, and you put the 5,000 in your account and you spend your 5,000, where did you pay into unemployment? Where did you pay into state disability? Where did you pay into Social Security and Medicare? Where did you pay your federal or state taxes? You didn't. And that's where we get into trouble every single time. I have done so many tax returns for people who were independent contractors that never paid in estimated payments or anything, and ended up with this big tax bill at the end and said, hey, wait a minute, I really wasn't a contractor, I was an employee. So let's go take it step by step. First, if you are applying for a job at a company and they say, well, we're going to make you a contractor, and they say you're going to work 40 hours or 30 hours under our direction here in the office and use our equipment, but we're going to pay you as a contractor. So we're going to pay you $25 an hour for 30 hours a week, and we will write that check once a week. And you go, great. Oh my gosh, 30 hours and $25 an hour. I am going to be great. That's X amount of dollars and I can pay my bills. All right. Two things. Fiction. And a person who hires you to do a job for 30 hours a week, when you're sitting in their office using their equipment, you are not a contractor. You are an employee. Now, why do they want to call you a contractor? They want to call you a contractor because they don't have to pay Social Security and Medicare, match your Social Security and Medicare at 7.65%. They don't have to pay workers' comp for you. I'll bust that myth in a little bit, but they think they don't have to pay workers' comp for you, and they don't have to pay into unemployment for you. So, okay, so there, on their side, what a plus. They are so lucky. They now have a talented person at $25 an hour. They're not paying in any payroll tax for you, unemployment, state disability, workers' comp. They're not doing anything. They're just paying you a straight $25 an hour. It saves them money. It saves them, they think, liability. And you go, wow, I'm going to get 30 hours at $25 an hour. I can live my life. Okay. So to be honest with you, they're wrong. I cannot hire someone for $30 an hour, for $25 an hour, 30 hours a week to sit in my office and call them a contractor. I will get busted. And if after a year and a half, I lay off that contractor, they're going to walk over to the labor board, file for unemployment, and the labor board's going to say, wait a minute, you're a contractor, you get a 1099. That's a 4-letter number. I call it a 4-letter word. 1099, you don't get unemployment. Do you realize what that means? You've worked for a year and a half, and nothing's been paid into unemployment on your behalf. Nothing's been paid into state disability. And there you are. And you go, wait a minute, I worked at their office for 30 hours a week. Under your guidelines, oh state, I was an employee. And then guess what they do? They come back to me, they scream at me. They said, I didn't classify you properly and I'm in deep trouble. Okay. So when you're going in for a job, first thing, are they hiring you as an employee, or are they trying to make you a contractor? I know you're desperate for money, and I know you need money right away, but I will go into what you need to do if you're a contractor, and that will save your ass if you do what I say. Okay. So first thing, myth, that employers cannot hire you and call you a contractor when you're an employee. It's on them. They can get in trouble. You can get screwed over. Let's not do that. Second, if you are a true contractor and they hire you as a contractor and they say, sign an independent contractor agreement, remember, they're going to want it in writing that you said you were a business owner. That's what 1099s mean. If you get 1099s for your work, a 1099 form and how to look at what 1099 and contractor is on my website, robindavinci.com. So go there. If you fill out an independent contractor agreement with someone and you fill out a W-9, not a W-4, a W-4 is for an employee. A W-9 is an independent contractor. It says on the form, you can go to my website. It says on the form that you have a business, your individual name, your business name, your tax ID, the address you use for your business. And so now you've said to these people, here is my independent contractor agreement. Here's my W-9 that I signed for you. And then they're going to say, okay, do you have a business license? And that's going to stop you, isn't it? Because you're going to say, no, I don't have a business license. If you are an independent contractor or a business owner, you're required to have a business license. Now, up on my board in the corner behind me is my business license. I have one for the city where my office is, and I work from home, and I applied the minute I started my company coming out of my house. I applied for a business license in the city in which I reside. You have to do that if you want to be a real business owner or an independent contractor. So now you've got this paperwork, an independent contractor agreement that you've signed, a W-9 stating that you're an independent contractor that you've signed. You've provided a business license, and they're going to ask you for insurance. And you go, what? I have to have insurance? Well, if you're a legitimate business, yes, you do. You have to have insurance as well to protect you. Now, let's say I hire somebody and I say, I've got to hire you for 40 hours a week to do my data entry and clerical work. I would have to hire them on as an employee, which means that it would open up all of the employee paperwork. I would have to register with the state and get all that going and pay all the fees and taxes I'm telling you about. So to stay a true independent contractor, listen up. Hire other independent contractors to work for you. That's how you avoid that problem. So what you want to do is, if you start a small business and you are, let's say you're a graphic design, you want to hire several people. You want them to have their own businesses, their own business licenses, an independent contractor agreement, and insurance, and then they can work for you, because you've now set it up that you are an independent contractor with all your paperwork, and now they're independent contractors with their paperwork. And that's how you avoid this going to the state and someone saying, I worked for them and I worked in their office and I was an employee and they didn't pay me an employee and now no one's paid my taxes and I'm in trouble and they're in trouble, and then you sue and the state gets involved and it's a nightmare. Okay. So working for yourself has to have a structure, and I'm a structure person. So if you want to know what to do, you need to follow what I'm saying. I really want to tell you that there are people out there that want to help you after you're established. I want to get you established in the right way. Okay. I'm not kidding. You need to do certain things. Okay. So you've decided you want to be an employee where someone pays you, takes out your taxes, pays into unemployment, has workers' comp, and pays into, and you pay into state disability. So you've decided you're going to give that up. Okay. Don't want to do that anymore. You want to be in business for yourself. All right. So now it's certainly different if you manufacture something that you sell. It's different if you're just services. There are so many different things that an entrepreneur can do. Open up car rental business, my goodness, a plumber, an electrician, all of these people end up needing help once they get their business going. It is very rare, and I mean very rare, that you can do your small business all by yourself unless you keep it very tight and you don't step out of certain boundaries. But once you get to the point where you grow and you need people to help you, that's where all these problems come in. Okay, so let's talk about the 1099. If someone hires you as a 1099 and you provide them with an independent contractor agreement, a W-9, and a business license, it implies that you are covered by insurance. Now, I have a corporation and I work as a small business and I have clients that pay me. My small business corporation has a business license and insurance and all those things in place. So when I step into someone else's office to do some work, I have insurance that covers me in their office, okay? I have my insurance. So I provide that to someone who would ask me to come to their office. If indeed you are a contractor without insurance and you go into their office, they may not understand when they hire you, but when they get audited for workers' comp, they have to include your independent contractor amount. So they're going to have to pay per $100, a certain amount of money per $100 to have you there, unless they don't tell the truth. But in a workers' comp audit, it's asked, do you have any independent contractors that don't have insurance? And if they do, and you're one of them, they have to say yes. If you have and they have to pay. If you have insurance, then they don't have to. So they really do get it cheaper. If you are an independent contractor with all this lined up, it is cheaper for them to hire you as that than have an employee. Employees can be costly. And I do want to bust that myth that employees think they pay into unemployment. No, the employer pays into unemployment. The employee does not. So when there's a dispute about unemployment and the employee gets mad, the employer actually has some say-so over a lot of it if they were fired for misconduct or stealing or something. That's why they go to the employer and say, why did you fire this person? Why did you let this person go? And then they make a determination. It actually can go to a board for determination, and you can get called in if there's any problem. But if you're a true independent contractor, you do not get any of the state you work in's benefits because you haven't paid in. So being your own boss means that kind of responsibility. So how do you go about getting a business license? You go on to the city you live in and ask if a business license is required. Most independent contractors that have come through me for the last 36 years have all worked from home. And in your home, in order to be an independent contractor and all these other things, you need to establish that where you work from. So let's say you live in one city, but you have an office in another. You have a nice small office somewhere. Where you have that small office would require a business license. And if you're renting from a landlord, the landlord's going to require insurance. So at the very least, you're going to have to get some liability insurance to have an office on someone's property. So let's set up the scenario. You're done being an employee. You don't want to be an employee anymore. You feel you can make more money out on your own. Let's pick that you were an employee for a plumbing company. And you say, Joe owned the company, but I did most of the work. So I'm going to go out on my own and I'm going to open my own plumbing business. I am going to do it by myself. I'm not going to have any helpers. So at first, what do I do? Okay, well, you need to get decide what entity you want to be, what structure. Do you want to be a corporation, an LLC, or a sole proprietorship? What's the difference? Well, a corporation protects you the most. An LLC is a limited liability company. And then a sole proprietorship means you're just using your name, using your address, and billing out people, and they pay Tommy Smith. Tommy Smith Plumbing. So you go out and you start doing business as Tommy Smith Plumbing, and you're starting to get some work and people are paying you. You're bidding out jobs. You write out an invoice. They pay you $800 for a job. And you go, $800. Wow, I'm doing well. Stop right there. Of that $800, you need to take probably 200 of it minimum, put it in an account for your taxes, estimated taxes that you pay quarterly. And you go, wait a minute, what? Yes. Every time you get paid, you put money in your business checking account. You got to move that money over to another account, save it so that when you have to make your estimated taxes on your income, you will have your tax ready. Do most independent contractors do that? No. I'm going to give you an example because I could go on and on. This might have to be 2 parts. You might have to go to my website, robindavinci.com, to see what else is going on. But I'll give you an example. I had a client who ran a major janitorial company, and he had a specific amount of employees that he paid all their stuff for, the taxes and unemployment insurance and workers' comp. And then he hired small businesses to do some of the bigger things like carpet cleaning and power washing, things like that. Well, that independent contractor came in, signed an independent contractor agreement, had an established company, but he didn't have a corporation. And I sent him a 1099 at the end of the year for $51,000. Well, that $51,000 he never paid any estimated taxes on. And he went to his tax guy or a tax service place, and they said, you owe $17,000. And he came into my office screaming. And I was taken aback. And I said, wait a minute, you've been in business a long time. Doesn't anybody give you 1099s? He goes, most of my clients don't give me 1099s. I tell them I'll give them a discount if they pay me cash and I don't have to tell the IRS I made money. I said, well, I don't do business that way, and I don't allow my clients to do business that way. So you need to go back to your tax guy and say, what about all my expenses? Hear me out. You have expenses. You have a cell phone. He had trucks. He had equipment rental. He had gasoline. He had insurance, all these things, and nobody took them. So this guy came in screaming to me. I had to sit with him and show him all his deductions. He ended up owing $4,500, not $17,000, because he indeed was a legitimate business with all these deductions, and his tax guy didn't take them because this guy didn't tell him. So you have to do your prep work. So taking that plumbing company, okay, so I gave him a 1099. He should have probably gotten 15 or 20 more 1099s. And then he would have quite a big company going. Then he pays his workers, and then those workers have to pay tax on their money. I mean, it's complicated, okay? So I got to bust you if you think you can just all of a sudden open up a business tomorrow. Okay, so then I know I'm giving you a lot of information, and I can go way slower on any topic. Producer Joe, if anybody writes in something, please tell them. That we have more answers for them, and I will do videos to answer specific parts of this. Wanted to get this information out there. So now, what does 1099 income mean when you go to do your tax return? All right. So there's Form 1040, then there's Schedule A, B, C, D, and E. Probably an F, G. There's a lot. You would be a Schedule C. And on that Schedule C, it will say gross revenue. And that's all your 1099s and all the money you made. You have to be honest. I don't encourage anybody not to be honest, okay? This would be a mistake. So let's say you made $110,000 your first year. You put $110,000 up in the gross revenue line. And then you get to itemize all your deductions, which are is car and phone and insurance and office supplies and rent and utilities. Oh my goodness. All right. So then you take the 110, and let's say that first year you had 70,000 in costs that first year. So then what comes down to the bottom line is $40,000. That $40,000 is what you're going to pay tax on. And you go, wait a minute, but I didn't put any tax in. That's where every small business and independent contractor makes their first mistake. That's taxable. Not only is it taxable for federal and state, depending on what state you live in, but you have to pay in both sides of Social Security, Medicare. So you have to pay 15.3% on that. Now there's complications and it changes a little, but never be one of those people that thinks all this straight money I'm putting into my checking account is mine. No, it is not. Just because you're not an employee, you are self-employed. There's the myth. Employee, self-employed, still have to pay the Social Security and Medicare, still have to pay federal tax, still have to pay your state tax. You still have to do those things. And everybody thinks that they don't. And I know, and I'm talking to all of you, and you know someone who gets money under the table and doesn't pay tax on it. You all know someone. And you must realize, and I'm going to say it here, and it might be unpopular, and before I get off the air, I'm going to say it. Because there are so many people collecting money under the table and not paying their tax, that means those of us who pay our taxes are paying more. Did you hear? Paying more. We are paying more tax because there are so many people collecting under the table. Okay? And I'm going to give you another example because I've told you I've lived a long time and I've got all this stuff coming out of my brain. I know people who have hired contractors to fix their home, right? So let's say they said, we're doing a remodel for $150,000. Okay. Contractor comes in. The price is $150,000. The people at home go crazy and say, well, we can't pay you $150,000. We don't have that much money. And he goes, well, if you won't tell the government you gave me the money, I'll do it for $120,000. And their eyes light up and they say, great, let's do it for $120,000 under the table. That's what under the table means. It's like someone's handing you money under your table. And there you are. And those people do the job. They disappear. They haven't presented you with a business license, a contractor's license, nothing. And they did a bad job and you've given them money and they're gone. And you've given them at least a big deposit. No, no, no. If they're trying to do things under the table, they're going to do that to you too. So there's so much to learn about this. And I think I need to stop right now because I've probably filled your head with craziness about employee versus self-employed. But it's important to know the differences, important to know what privileges you're giving up in your state when you go to be self-employed, and the responsibilities you have as you are your own employer regarding taxes and obligations. So yeah, it sounds like fun and games to be an employer, a self-employed contractor. It sounds fun, but it's a lot of responsibility and you have to get your structure in place. And I am here to tell you throughout the next many years, I will help you. I will make sure you do it the right way and that you'll succeed. So I'm hoping Producer Joe gets comments and I get comments that we can answer right away. I want to be that person. I want to be that myth buster about business. There's just nobody busting your chops about this kind of stuff. And so I do at this point want to say I'm here to help. I have written a book, Common Sense Guide to Mastering Your Money. It's a very simple read because I just point things out to you. I want to follow it up. I'm going to have spreadsheets and all kinds of things you guys can work on. Make sure that you make the most out of being an entrepreneur when you decide you don't want to be an employee anymore, and millions do it every day. And some people are forced to do it because they lost their jobs. But I want you to succeed. And I don't know how many people out there are rooting for you to succeed, but I'm one of them. So I want to thank producer Joe and my husband for getting a new setup. I'm hoping that my new microphone and filter are helping make the sound better. I'm going to get better at these videos, but believe me, I have a wealth of information I want to pass to you. And I just want people to be well and safe and be their best self and get this done. And if you are looking to go into business on your